Which Michael?
Michael Schuster, lead instructor from Brazil. So welcome everyone. We're glad you're here. You could join us. We're coming up on approaching the end of our second season of Organizer Hangouts. So thanks for joining. Today we're going to talk about communities. And we've already talked about it a little bit before in different contexts, but right now we're going to focus more specifically on selecting your community participants, what you need to do to prepare participants, prepare organizers, and prepare your communities for all the fun that's about to happen. So let me go ahead and do a screen share. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay, so like I said, we're going to talk about communities, touch on selecting participants, prepping organizers, prepping participants, and prepping community partners. Each of you are at different stages. We have Pedro on the line, and the IDDS Educación is starting in just a few weeks, so they're going to be much further down the pipeline than, for example, our PIA friends who are on the line who are just finished up their first CCB and have some fresh ideas, fresh from the spot. So it's a range, and that's okay. But I just want to remind you guys of what we've already covered so far. If you haven't watched this, please watch it. You probably remember that in episode 1, we went over all the lessons learned for everything, and we did touch a little bit on communities, kind of the biggest things that Laura and I were pointing out that you guys well remember and hopefully are taking to heart and already are putting into action. Things like making sure that there are community members on each team. That is a requirement and will obviously be beneficial for the community and also for longevity of the projects. And also making sure that the knowledge stays there in the community and that these projects really are community-driven and community-based. That there is an involvement of the local government, potentially universities, but mainly some sort of institutional partnership going on that's able to support not just these projects, but an innovative ecosystem of ideas that might happen afterwards. And if our recommended tip is that the summit is hosted within the community where your projects are based. We recognize that with some of the urban summits, your quote-unquote communities might be offices or smaller community groups that are a little bit further away, but we really recommend no more than a day's travel, and that's just for continuity purposes. Number one, it's easier to get to logistically during the summit, but number two, after the summit, since this is all volunteer-based, people are more likely to follow up if it's closer to where they are and they already have those established relationships. So if you are doing community visits that are a bit more extended, we recommend that those are longer and extended, just so that you can develop that relationship or that those community members who are from there are on the team, ideally both. And again, like we said, which a lot of you guys have already started doing, we do recommend having like a CCB about 6 to 3 months out from the summit to get an idea of what the projects and who the great participants might be. Then you remember in episode 5, we talked about communities in terms of community partners in relation to projects, right? So we talked a lot about the projects. We gave this great list of best practices and how the community fits within that, a bit of a basic timeline. You guys are already kind of doing this, recommending meeting with the community, doing a hands-on workshop, following up with them, talking about the projects. And then kind of what to do at IDDS and after IDDS. I really encourage you to go back to that episode and watch it if you missed it. But now we're coming to really specifically focus on the community. So we say the community, but who is the community? And when we say the community, what are the images we get? I think we have one here. Hi, Michael. Are you on the line?
Hello.
Yay, great. Thanks for joining.
You're welcome. Sorry for the interruption.
No, it's all good. So we just started. So right now we're getting to who is the community? Because I think we keep saying it as if it's just this homogenous group that's out there that we're serving. But I know for each of it's different. So I'd like for each summit just to define for you guys who's your target community. Do you want to share, Dana, first for Pia?
Yeah, so for Pia.
No.
Yeah. So this year we actually just selected our community and our local partners all over the technology business center. As we worked really closely with them to, they drove the decision-making process of who we can. So it's called Naboya. It's near India.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah. Here. Yeah, so we're still kind of getting to know who the community is and the diversity within it, but we know that if your tractor, could someone mute their mic?
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, so anyway, so we're gonna continue working with World Vision, who is very tied to the community to understand the people there and the needs and the projects that might be identified. And one of the community members just participated in the CCB that was held in Kabule. So he's going to be our primary liaison, I think, going forward. Mm-hmm. So for you guys, there actually is a rural town that you're working in, and then there are community partners that you're working with, such as World Vision. And I imagine that you're working with the government office there as well. Yeah. And the Kafui Innovation Center, even though it's not based there, will be kind of a piece of that as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's all very close geographically. So, and there we have a few sites we're exploring whether we're gonna, how much of it we'll actually host in the community. There's a big church we can use, but we might travel as well. Mm-hmm. Great. So there's, you'll probably notice is a bit more of like the classic style community where it actually is a town with people. And there's a little bit, there are some key partners that they're working with. Pedro, do you want to give it your example of it with IDDS Educación? It's a bit more of an urban summit. So they are there in Bogota, but they're working with specific, they're defining communities more as other specific areas. Pedro, do you want to talk about what you guys are defining as the community? Oh, my internet connection is unstable. Pedro, if you're on the line, I don't think we can hear you. Max, welcome.
Hi.
Hi. Pedro, can you hear us?
Pedro sent something. He's on the move. I can share in a minute, please.
Okay, no problem. Wait, say that again, Michael.
He was writing in the chat that he's on the move.
Okay, he's on the move. Nope, no problem. Yeah, you can share in a minute. Actually, Max is on the line. Max was at IDDS Lahore, where they operated under a similar model. So it was another urban summit where they worked with separate offices. So Max, do you want to talk about how you guys defined the community?
Yeah, I can talk about it a little bit. Mm-hmm. Community for us was also more organizations that might work with specific communities, but not like for the IDS where I was a participant, our community was more like a village, and that was very different here. Mm-hmm. As I said, it was organizations, and the kind of the idea, the goal of that was that by working with organizations and supporting them and the work they do with communities anyway, it would be easier to like guarantee or enable like a level of sustainability of the projects afterwards. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we worked with an organization that works in crafts. They do trainings with homebound women workers. We worked with an organization that works in livestock. They train people to disseminate medicine. Yeah, and there were 2 or 3 other ones.
Mm-hmm. And something about IDDS Lahore is that they were working with multiple sectors, which for their capacity they found challenging. It was exciting, but challenging. So we do recommend that people kind of focus on a sector because it is multiple. It's okay to have multiple partners, but when it's multiple sectors, that's multiplied the amount of time that you would have to spend kind of building up those relationships, especially if it is in a larger city and there's a lot more bureaucracy to get through. The chances for impact can be a little bit more focused if you have a particular defined group that you're working with. So again, multiple community partners are okay, but having kind of a specific focus. Michael, do you want to talk about how IDDS Amazon is defining the community? Who the community, the target community is?
Okay. So we're kind of working in an urban periphery outside of the urban area of Belém. So I think we're defining the community mainly based on our focus, working with the Association of Organic Farmers. So they're our main people in contact, basically. So I think this is the heart, because they support us with the building and things like that. And from there, from the center of the association, we basically try to include the real community, actually. So not the association community, but the real community in the geographical boundaries of Boa Vista do Acará, which means also like the school, or also community members which are not part of the association. And I think that's one of the limitations we're having since the beginning, because I guess Deborah could tell us much more about that, because she's there on the spot. But as far as what I figured out so far, or what I've heard, is that there are some differences in, oh, you're not part of the association, so now you want to be part of this. And so we kind of have to still figure out a way how to blend those two communities together, basically.
Thanks, Michael. And something you're touching on is something I think we know intuitively, right? Is that a community is never just this homogenous group of people that we're working with. It's actually clusters of other groups of people, and all individuals, all these clusters have different values, different hopes and dreams. Some clusters have similar ones and some don't. But just keep in mind the complexity. So when we talk about the community, even if it's just one town, there's going to be differences in opinion. And as some of you have already noticed, there's differences of opinion from the organization you might be working with versus what, actual community members might say. And even within community members, a farmer might say one thing, another farmer might say something else. So just keeping in mind that complexity. It's good to be thinking about all of you have been thinking about this to some extent, but how do you want to see the community change after IDDS? A lot of you put this already in your proposal, whether that's, I want to start up a more innovative ecosystem, or I want to improve livelihoods, or, there's kind of the longer term, huge impact things that we'd love to do. And then there's the more shorter term tangible outcomes that's like, yeah, we'd love to help them with these few projects. So there's the change that we want to see, but then there's also, how does the community want to change after IDDS? And when we say, again, the community, that could be a variety of people. And so different people are going to want to change different ways. And I think you guys have already noticed this, right? Like your organizational partners have their targets, have their goals. But community members also have their own personal targets and their own personal goals. And so it's good to start thinking through now and being honest, first identifying who that target community is and who are the types of people that are kind of within that community and what are their hopes and dreams. So for each of the projects that you're working with, who are the types of people that you're really targeting? Is it a mother's group? Is it a farmer's group? What type of farmer's group? Is it a education? Is it a classroom? Is it a whole school? Is it a school system? Thinking through what that might be and really thinking through now with your organizing team. It's really important that you guys start thinking through that design process ahead of participants and start thinking, what is it how do people really want to change and who really wants to change and how? Some people don't want to change, or some people may say they want to change and, have this innovative ecosystem or have something different. But they really, when it comes down to practice and behavior change, they really don't, or they might just be taxed with other priorities. So it's good to start thinking through, of the people that you're working with, how are they spending their time? How are they spending their money? Typically, we put our time and resources, our extra, quote unquote, extra time and resources in the things we value. So that might be in family, that might be in friends, that might be in entertainment, that might be in side projects or extra education. Think about where they're already spending that extra time. And typically that's where they're going to spend it later. And so try to think, how can we work within what's already valuable to them? It goes back to our ask, observe, try. We could ask them what's valuable and they'll probably say something. But when we observe how people are already spending their time, that really tells us what's valuable to them and how can we work within that to catalyze. So this really comes into play when you're thinking about selecting community participants. Some of you already have, some of you are still in the process. You really want to be selecting those participants who do have either flexible time or resources or are definitely are interested to change, right? Like who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't say yes to, an amazing opportunity afterwards? Some people wouldn't because, they have a lot of family work back home or other work that's occupying their time. But try to think through, grab those people who are interested in doing something new and different and are kind of the community mobilizers. So there's a few tips in the notes section of this. I've marked it down so you don't need to remember this. You can always just refer back to the PowerPoint slide, and I'll even sneak a peek here and show you. Then the notes section, just as you're thinking of who your community participants are, here kind of like shares top 5 tips, how to grab some of your good participants. 1, use the same criteria and questions as you did with all your other participants. You want to make sure that you're grabbing the same type of people. So you want to grab those motivated people who are interested in innovation. It might look a little bit different, but making sure that you're using the same criteria. You can ask the same questions. Doesn't have to be on paper. It could be via phone or in person, but we want people thinking through the same type of questions. Why do they want to come to IDDS? What do they expect to get out of it? Is it just something fun, or, what are their hopes and dreams, and what do they want to do after an IDDS? So once you've selected them, make sure you talk with them, be clear about dates, and needing to stay for the whole summit, especially if they are there in the community. It is important that they're there for the entire summit. Try to get actual, what I would say, users and movers. So for a particular project, in an ideal world, you know what your projects are, and you can get a user, even though your projects will probably pivot a bit, you can try to target a user in the community and try to target a mover. So maybe somebody in government or an NGO or somebody who actually has the decision-making power. So it'd be great if you could get 2 community members on each of those teams, 1 from each of those. And it will really help shape out your project well. Try to run a CCB or skill builder. A lot of you have already done that, and that helps you see who's really into this hands-on methodology versus who might just want to, sit in and hang out. And then make sure, this is more logistical, but make sure you're adding them to your participant list now and begin building that group ethos, and that way they're kind of getting the same information that everybody else is. You'll see that with these 2, the reason why I put these 2 pictures is because there were kind of 2 models of selecting community participants. One, this is IDDS Zero Waste. What they did is they were working with waste picker associations, and so they just told the waste picker associations, here's our criteria, here's how many people we have, we'll allow you to select the people. So they ended up selecting some of their best waste pickers. Turned out great. So that's one model, is giving your criteria to the organization, having them do it. Another model is in IDDS Dakar. They arrived a week beforehand, went through, did a walk around the community. Theirs was a very small village just right there. Everything's all together in a 15-minute walk. So they just walked around and they talked to different homes, explained what IDDS is, got a feel for people, asked questions, and then selected them. So they ended up with people here like Jacob, who I think is a science teacher, who are also great people. So there's 2 different methods, but make sure you're saving room. I recommend more than a week's time, and that's mainly, again, so that your communication is consistent. They have the same information as everybody else. I understand things come in the way, so if you have to wait till the last week, you could. It's not ideal just for preparation purposes. So in terms of preparation, prepare your organizers for communities. I'd love to hear from if there's anybody on the line who can talk about, maybe they were an organizer. Let me see if there might not be anybody on the line that really fits this poll. Sometimes we have organizers, you go out to the community for the first time and you're like, oh, okay. So you see the community, you're like, what do we do? What are we supposed to do? Like, we know that we're going out for community visits, but we don't know why. We don't know what we're looking for. There's very little preparation. So something I really want us to be focusing on, and I'll be helping out with this on the ground, but it's good for you to start talking to your organizing teams now, is prepare your organizers, let them know what to expect. What do you think are some things that what would you guys want to know, like, before you go out to the community? What are some just like key things you think you might want to know?
I guess very often, also from participants, we get the question, do they have internet access?
Do they have internet access? Yeah. What else?
Just logistically, other types of infrastructure like toilets, water, what the facilities might look like, where you'll be sitting, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What kind of tools are available?
Yep. A lot of logistical questions. Where are things? Where's the bathroom? Where can I buy a phone card? Where do I buy anything? Where do I pick up the bus or something? Yeah, a lot of logistical questions. Where are things? Where's the office we're supposed to go to? Unfortunately, it has happened. We've dropped organizers off before with no direction. Said, oh, good luck, explore. And yes, we want people to explore, but we want them to have like a comfortable foundation that they know where key things are, and then they can explore for the extra things. But we don't want to leave people kind of off. So here's kind of my my guiding tip. The guiding tips of some key things that you might want to be prepping your organizers. Again, you can start doing this now. We'll also review it during organizer orientation, and they will go out and visit. Things like, what is the goal of this visit? Why are we going out to the community? We often don't define that. So it's good it sounds silly, but just remind people what the goal is. The goal to, just meet the heads, just meet the community leaders and see the area? Or is the goal to show a prototype? Is the goal to talk to a bunch of community members and get ideas for a prototype? What is the goal? Be very specific about what the goal is. How long do we have? Do we have like 2 hours, 6 hours, 3 days? It sounds silly, but it's always good just to clarify, make sure everybody's on the same page. What are the projects? Where are they? Who are the community leaders? Who are you working with? Are there key people that the organizing team has already been talking to? Make sure you remind your organizers, design facilitators, who they are, and make sure that they have been introduced and know who they are. And we'll get to that. Also, the community partners know who they are. Languages, it's helpful for them to know what are the languages out there. If they can start studying the languages a little bit, that's great. Portuguese is available via Duolingo. I've already been talking to the team about that. Some of you have more local languages, but there are resources out there. Start learning at least a few phrases. Start teaching your organizers a few phrases if you can. Make them practice it during your meetings if you haven't already. What are some of the cultural expectations, especially in terms of greetings? Should we be shaking hands? Is it inappropriate to shake hands? Are there other movements? How should men and women interact? What are gifts? Should we be bringing gifts or not? Just as a side note, we as IDDS do not believe in giving out money and candy. I think that goes without saying, but I do want to stress that, and we will be clarifying that with organizers and participants. That's a separate conversation, but just want to clarify, we don't believe in handouts. We believe in everybody's a creator and a generator, so we co-create together. Taking pictures, clarify with your organizers, is it okay to take pictures and when? What's appropriate, what's not appropriate? A checklist of what do they need to bring with them, if anything, is everything going to be there? And meal money, very simple logistical thing, but people got to eat, and water. So just some simple tips. Same thing with participants, right? They go through the same thing again, just like the organizers. They get on the ground and they see this. They walk through and they're like, okay, this is great. This is town. What are we doing? These goats are cute. I want to take a picture. So everybody's wondering, what do we do? I don't know. Do you know? Did you hear? Maybe somebody wasn't paying attention during this session. So make sure that you clarify. Again, Same thing as organizers. Make sure that you prepare before you go to the community, reiterate at the community. What is the goal of this trip? How long do we have? What are the projects and where? Who are the community leaders and who should we be working with? And then you'll have some exploration time just to talk to any old community members that you want. But again, knowing who those key people are. What are the languages? What key phrases should we know? What are the cultural expectations? Taking pictures. It can be really overwhelming, again, if you have 40 people taking a picture of you, and you guys know this, but just a reminder, letting people know and be aware of that, a checklist of what they need to bring with them and how their meals and basic needs will be met. So again, you see this nice mirroring of what's happening. So if we can, we're hoping to model that during organizer orientation of what we will prepare you. And then we hope that you'll take that and also mirror it with participants to prep them in that prep time before you go out to the community. Usually people are like, what do I cover during this time? I don't know. So this is what you cover. And then communities. They are a whole other stakeholder that's going through the same question. They're like, why are there these random foreigners in my town? What's going on? What is this program? I don't know. I need to just go sell something today. So they're also wondering the same question. So it is good, local organizers, please make sure, a lot of you are already doing this, but meet with your communities. Let them know who's coming and when. And again, repetition is wonderful. So you can never repeat too many times, just to make sure there's clarity. Let them know what other languages are in the group, what other nationalities. I think it's also a fun thing for a lot of communities who haven't had international guests. Let them know who's in the room or who's going to be there. And that's an exciting thing for them. And they can, if they want to make pitches or if they want to just meet certain people, it's good too. Let your community members and partners know how long are people going to stay, what are the goals of this meeting or of them visiting, and what are the expectations of that person and community partner. Do they need to stay with them the whole day? Do they just meet with them for an hour or so? And be mindful, people are doing this voluntarily, so just be mindful of that. Letting them know, what do they need to prepare and do? Should they prepare? Do they need to prepare anything? Let them know that well in advance. Some of you have already been letting them know, and a lot of them are really excited, which is cool. Should they expect compensation? Usually we do not give compensation, as we've already mentioned before. However, some cultures, when we were in Tanzania, you have to provide an administration fee. So, and that's just because you're taking up their time. So it's going to depend per culture and per place. But there should be kind of a thank you or of some sort. And so that you should talk with your local organizers. You'll know what that most appropriately might be. But set their expectations well, what they should expect, what they shouldn't expect. We're not going to change their world. Maybe a little bit in a good way. Hopefully it will take some time and resources from them. So hopefully you've already been managing those expectations and they do know about that. And also checking with them. How do they feel about photos? How do they checking with different community members? How do you feel? And, also making sure that organizers and participants are aware before you take a photo, asking someone for permission. Small things like that. Just kind of one more thing that a helpful tool. Some of you have done this before, some of you haven't. Has anyone done a community mapping exercise before?
Not really, kind of.
So I'll have it linked in the notes, but a lot of different organizations do it. We kind of have our own form. Peace Corps has a great version, so I'll link it. They actually have a written up session plan, so I'll link that in there. IDO does something similar. Basically, all organizers and participants should be getting a map of the community that they're going to, just so that they know where things are, key things like the offices that they're supposed to meet with, health clinic in case an emergency happens, or what they need to do in case of an emergency. And maybe, where the bathroom or other very important key things should be mapped on there. But feel free to use it as a map that people can draw on, and they can add things that they might see as valuable. There's different ways to run a community mapping exercise. One is that you kind of already have a map. People can draw and add the things that are valuable to them on there. Another version might be, participants go out and explore and then try to draw their own map, and you can see what's valuable to participants. Another way, yet still that's usually used by a lot of community-based organizations working in development, is they talk with, it's a good idea generation activity, is they talk to a group of stakeholders or a group of community members and say, hey, map your community for me. And then everybody goes around, they show a map of their community, and depending, I mean, you guys have probably seen this before, right? Depending on what they draw on their map shows what's valuable to them. It's just another way to assess what's valuable to them. So maybe somebody might put the mosque on there, somebody else might put the watering stream, somebody else might put the computer house because they go use the internet there all the time. So it's just another good assessment tool. It can be used in a variety of ways. But there should definitely be a map that your participants and organizers are getting. And then you can have a little fun design activity with it if you want.
Can I ask something? Because there's this landscape architect, Ian McHarg, and he's mapping the landscape, but he's using transparent paper and adding different layers, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So is this also something you're normally doing with this community mapping, adding different layers? For example, one layer is psychogeography, the other one is housing, the third one is natural ecological infrastructure and things like that.
Yeah.
Or are you just doing whatever comes out of it, like a mind map, community mapping?
So there's two maps, right? Like one is a map for participants and organizers just to know where things are, like for Maslow's basic hierarchy of needs. Mm-hmm. And then for those other layers, it just depends on the summit, what they have time for and what makes sense. So for example, with your guys' summit, that would make a lot of sense since you guys are looking at land and environment and usage. And I think that's great if people have time, they want to add layers. And there's a variety of ways you could do it. You could have someone else do it, or you could have the community generate it. It just depends on kind of the goals that you're going for. Mm-hmm. If you guys want to hold on for just a sec, I realize my computer battery is dying, so I'm going to grab my computer charger real quick. And we're back. So while I'm plugging in my computer, the last thing that I just want to touch on when we talk about communities and preparation, something we don't really take a whole lot of time on, but I do want to start taking more time on, is talking about what is IDDS, because as participants are going around, as you as organizers are going around, community members are going to be, what is IDDS? What is this program? I don't know what it is. Why are you here? And a lot of people are like, I don't know, it's design, it's everything, it will change your world, it's this amazing experience. So before I give you talking points, I want to hear from you. If somebody says, oh, what is IDDS? What is your program? What would you say? Or what have you been saying, better yet? It sounds like, is that you, Pedro? Can anyone hear me? Michael, when people ask you what IDDS is, what have you been saying?
I see it more as a tool to train a design method and design thinking to the community, and not so much like a design agency who's preparing final prototypes. And it's more an education event to train people on design methods.
Mm-hmm. So more of a learning experience than an event.
Yeah.
Yep. That's good. That is accurate. Yeah. What else? Sorry, go ahead.
So that's good. So I didn't tell bullshit to all the other people.
Good. Max, what do you say when people say, what is IDDS, when community members are asking in Pakistan or anywhere?
I'd probably say something, it depends a bit on who I talk to, but I would probably say something very similar to what Michael would say. I think I would also stress the community building aspect of it, because I think that is a strong outcome that most of the participants afterwards have a strong feeling of being a community.
Yeah.
And that's for a lot of them, I think that's something that
Sorry, Melissa, did you say something? Oh, you're on mute.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Yeah, that's good, Max. I think you were breaking out a little bit, but it sounds like you were saying the community building aspect, and then also what next, what after IDDS, the importance of that. Yep. And what about somebody else? Angela, are you on the line?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. What do you say when people say, what is IDDS? Especially since you have not been to an IDDS yet. What do you say?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. So definitely, the major things that come to mind are the community and helping people, training people on how to come up with innovations that, could better their lives. That's how I'd summarize it.
Yeah. So coming up with some sort of low-cost technology that hopefully is improving people's lives. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's good. Angela hasn't even been to an IDDS yet. She's got it. Awesome. So, yeah, all of you guys are right. And there's many things that IDDS are, but if you need 4 main talking points, here they are. And I have a handout to go with it. These are the 4 main talking points. 1, we are a hands-on design experience. So we really stress hands-on learning. This is not a conference. Number 2, we bring together a diverse group of people. Even if you're a regional summit like IDDS Cookstoves or IDDS Educación, we believe that diversity will lead to more creative outputs. We're still researching whether that is true or not. So we don't emphasize that as much, but we do emphasize we bring together a diverse group of people, mainly like Max was saying, for the team building, the community building aspect of it. If anything, we're producing relationships that typically don't have an opportunity to meet. So for example, you might have the Dean of Computer Science from the University of Nairobi meets a midwife from Ghana, and they work together on a team and they produce this new product. And the product's great, but what's really cooler is that these 2 people would have never ever met in any other context except for IDDS. And that actually did happen. So we bring together a diverse group of people. Number 3, we teach the co-creation process. So what we can guarantee is that people will learn to co-create low-cost technologies. We don't want to promise and say that we will develop technologies that will change their lives. We aim to, that's like a hope. But what we really are doing is, like some of you are already saying, we're trying to teach the process of design. And it's okay, like the projects are just a vehicle. So we're not promising projects and prototypes. So also organizers, be at peace. That's just a nice output, a hope and a dream, and we have resources to scale those up if they end up going somewhere. But more important to us is to teach you the process of design. And I just want to note on this because I remember when I was in film school, actually, or doing my grad work, and my film teacher told me, he said, Cher, I don't have time to teach you every single piece of how to use the camera. But if I can just teach you how to read a manual, you're going to be good to go and you can learn on your own. So basically, we're teaching people this process that they can go take other places. 3rd is the process, learning to co-create. And with users, with designers, with community members. Ideally with users. Sometimes we don't always get that, but we're trying to aim for that. And number 4, Max really hinted at this, and this is what I want us to stress most importantly, to catalyze an innovative ecosystem. It's a lot of big English words. So if you're trying to translate this, basically that we believe that IDDS is not just an event, but it's something that will jumpstart hopefully a new way of living or a new way of life for a lot of these organizations, and bringing them together, building those relationships that weren't there before, hopefully generating more ideas. That's really where our strong suit is. Like somebody else mentioned, I think maybe Michael, we're not a design consultancy. We're not going to come in and make products for you, even though we're kind of asking for some ideas. What we really, our value addedness is that we can help people generate ideas together, bring them together and generate those ideas. And we really want to kind of set up that ecosystem where people can then take it further down the pipeline. So it's not an end-all event. If anything, it's the start of hopefully something new. So if you guys need, what will be, and we'll go over this during organizer orientation, but I did link it in here, is we do have a one-pager handout. So if people do want a pager handout, it's in English, unfortunately. So if you want to translate, you might have to translate, but the pictures are helpful. Again, I've highlighted the three main things, the fourth main thing just being that we are thinking about the future, like what will be the future effect. But if people do ask, like, what types of projects are you working on the back of the page are examples of projects. So we have the physical project of the avocado oil press from 2014, and we can share that design challenge. It's pretty much explained right here. Basically taking avocados, seeing what they could do, and they came up with a machine. And now that's going in different ways. There is also an example of a project with local farmers in Zambia, and they ended up turning into another kind of small business of their own, working with farmers in Zambia. So they didn't continue the project, but they went in another direction. And then there's another example of a project which was more of a mobile phone app from the IDDS in Brazil in 2012. And they were working with, it's a savings program on mobile phone for low-income women. And the cool thing that we like to highlight about this is, we also do kind of mobile phone programs, mobile phone apps sometimes for certain summits. And that one of the people, after going through the summit, decided to move and started up his own company. So each of these have continued in different ways. We like to, again, manage expectations and remind them. Sometimes we've also had projects that don't continue, and it was just a learning process and they went through different things. But if people do ask for examples, here's some examples you could quote to them. So I want you guys to have that in your hands just so that you feel comfortable when somebody says, what is IDDS? The International Development Design Summit. I know that sounds silly, but I've heard some people call it something else. So the International Development Design Summits, these are our four main things. We're hands-on design experience, bringing together a diverse group of people, teaching them to create low-cost technologies, and hopefully catalyzing an innovative ecosystem. So that's a lot of information, but hopefully you guys feel a little bit more prepared, have at least a little bit more direction of how to prepare your organizers, how to prepare your participants, and how to prepare community members. We have about 10 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions or any challenges that they've been facing? Anything at all? Or any words of wisdom that they've learned from their experience? No. Max, do you have any words of wisdom that you want to add? Any tips?
I think I would like to, like what you said about focusing. I would strongly agree with that. I think for the whole, like it did work, and there's a lot of projects who continue actually, but I think for that aspect of community building, I think it's important to focus, and maybe also focus on the amount of people, organizations, or communities one works with, because I think there's more opportunity to build strong and personal connections. Yeah.
Deborah, welcome.
Hey.
Hey.
I'm sorry, I was in a meeting. Sorry, I'm really late.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I really want to add to what Max is saying, because a piece of wisdom I like to give a lot of summits beforehand, but maybe so far beforehand that maybe they don't hear it. But hello, Dan. Come on. Dan Sweeney from IDDS Cook Stoves, fresh from the Burn Lab.
That's right. Can you smell it? Hey.
We're just finishing talking about, no, it's okay. We're just talking about communities.
Cool.
Agnes is on the line.
Hey,
Angela.
Agnes.
Angela's on the line.
Oh, good.
Hi.
Hi.
Awesome.
Okay.
Cool.
Yep.
So is that if you can, we really recommend having 3 to 5 local organizers on the ground. If you don't have that many, try to think through who's reliable that might be able to help you. Just because we know it can be a lot, and it really, I'm sure Max or others could attest to this, but it will really help you to have somebody who is from the community really leading some of these processes. Obviously, hey, it's like guest central here. Pedro, fresh off the line in person. So it's you want to make sure that you have somebody who knows the language, who knows the space, yeah, you want to make sure that you just have those people on the team, because it can get to be a lot. And really have them watch this video too, if they are new, if they are joining, so that they have an acquaintance of what is IDDS, what should they be doing to prepare. Yeah. Anything else? Any other words of wisdom or any questions, challenges you've been having? How many people are still in the process of selecting their community members? You guys are education. They're a few weeks away. Well done. It's raising his hand.
I have a question about the continuity of the project.
Yeah.
So, for example, we have three projects and they're nice and we want to continue. Do you have kind of like a incentive or subsidy project in mind or at hand, which is keeping the people engaged in a way that they're also getting financial support in continue developing the projects and testing them, because it's a lot of effort and time which people invest besides their normal job going on the field or going in the market for working. Is there any system at hand which supports?
Great question, Michael. So we actually have a whole webinar just on that called Project Continuity. It's in Series 1. I'll email it out with this, and we have a lot of resources actually that go through it. Unfortunately, right now it's at the stage where the direct IDN resources that we have that kind of Yona manages are all very small, and so we distribute those broadly in small chunks. But we do have connections to larger resources that Yona's always working at accruing. And that is why we really need those project reports, because if we have those project reports, we know what projects are continuing, and we can hear from you what are key resources that you're looking for, who needs them. Should we, like Yona gets calls all the time for different grant, like $20,000 grants she might hear about, and she'll ask, is there anybody who has a project that might be moving at that level and needs that level of support? And she can just send them the project report. So yes, through IDN, we have small micro grants that are about $2,000. And those I think will be running in September, and she does that specifically so that right after a summit, people can apply for those. Sometimes locally, different organizers, I know like in Colombia, they had their own microgrant process that they ran and that they budgeted for beforehand. So it was like $1,000 or $2,000?
Yeah, $1,500.
$1,500 each. So there are small pots of money. Yona also has a mentorship program that she's been running. And again, those project reports are like her main guide to kind of connect with the specific mentors that are needed. There's monetary support, there's mentorship support, there are certain educational opportunities, not as many now, there were a lot more before, but Yona's always kind of accruing different trainings or different opportunities that we're pitching out to each other. So the short answer is yes, and we have a whole session on it, and that's the importance of, I'll be at all your summits, I'll go over some of the resources, but we really need a champion there on the ground who can kind of, it's too much to talk about all of them at once, and people don't even really know what IDN is. So we would suggest just kind of commercial breaks throughout, like, hey, did you know that there's money available after this? Or how much money? Did you know that there's training just throughout the summit so that they know?
So, but what I'm wondering is how do the participant or the local community, how is the local community adapting to that? because what I can imagine that there's like a gap in this bureaucratic way of how the complete IDN is organized, and when you go to the community and talking about monetary funding, it's a different language of communicating with the people instead of saying, okay, you get $50 per month and you have to test 3 times. If there's an easier complexity level on how to communicate with those people, then.
Great question, Michael. And for that answer, I'm going to turn it over to Pedro.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I wanted to share a couple of things that we've done at IDDS Education that were sort of lessons learned from IDDS Zero Waste, and they tie to what we were talking about earlier about what IDDS is. So for IDDS Education, one of the things that we've heavily included in our pitch is the existence of the IDN network, and that we've been using both at local and international level in terms of participants. So we've even showed the Hilo platform to some of our community members, and we send some screenshots to some of our participants so that they know the type of things that they can do through the platform. And we also share the many opportunities that the network offers, as well as the opportunities that the network is able to capture and canalize through their channels. So that kind of helps participants and communities see the value of participating moving forward. I guess in the case of Colombia is a bit different because we have the Innovation Center, so we know that we can capture a number of the projects that happen afterwards. However, we know that the weak leg of our center and maybe of IDDS in general is the business side of things. So when we were preparing for the summit, we identified an organization that could capture those participants that will want to continue after the summit doing business-related work. So we know that participants go in like 3 different tracks. They want to either teach their communities or others what they learned. They want to continue building things, or they want to make a business out of what they learned. So we know that at the Innovation Center, we have the capabilities to capture the projects of those who want to either continue building things or teaching others. So when we build the budget for our summits, we always include prior to everything, the microgrants, budget for microgrants and budget for trainer of trainers, so that we can offer an immediate continuation to those who want to teach or continue building. And then we connect with organizations that can capture those participants who want to continue doing business. So in this case, is the United Nations Development Program in Colombia. They have a large entrepreneurship program. They're part of the summit. So they will be capturing or offering the opportunity to those who want to continue doing business to be part of their program for free. So that's sort of like a way in which you can very pragmatically and specifically articulate to participants and communities what is the value after the summit. So I think that part is crucial when like finding stakeholders to put the summit together and thinking about continuity. Again, I think in our case is different because we have the Innovation Center. However, for international participants, we don't have innovation centers in all those places. But what we've done is we, prior to the summit, connect participants with local chapters. So for example, all the participants that are coming from Guatemala, they know Omar, they know Oscar, they know all the group. All the participants in Brazil know Miguel, they know the work that they're doing, so they're aware of, okay, after the summit I have to go back to my country, but I'm not going to be on my own. There's other folks that have been part of IDDS, are part of the IDDS family, so I will be able to get together with them and speak the same language and maybe continue the projects that I work at IDDS through that chapter. So that's sort of another way to look at continuity in terms of participants and communities.
Yeah, and so basically, since we are USAID funded, we do have to go through a lot of processes. So a way to simplify that, it really is on the onus of each of you as the organizing teams to do something of your own accord, whether that's saving some of your budget money and then distributing that out as microgrants immediately after the summit, or working with another local partner who does have a little bit more flexibility. Because unfortunately, we do have to go through a lot of hoops to get approvals. And so yes, thinking through what that might be. But we have tons of things afterwards. All right, so thanks guys. Any last questions? We're about at our time right now. Anything else?
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool. Well, thanks guys for joining me. This is fun. Always love hanging out with you guys. Next week, we only have 2 more left. So next week we're going to be talking about team dynamics, forming your participant teams, and how to manage conflict. So it's going to be a lot of fun. If you want to come again, we'd love to have you. Thank you all. Max, I think, are you still in Pakistan? Is it late there? Is it late your time? I think you're our latest time zoner.
I think we left already.
Okay.
He sent in the chat.
Okay. That makes
Sorry,
sense.
but it was.
So thank you guys. Go, obrigada.
Thanks, Chair.
And if you have any other questions, feel free to, again, bounce them off me or definitely off each other.
Thanks, Cher.
Thanks.